It's such a shocking. I don't think I've ever seen a worse response to an event by a politician. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Political. My name is Connor Allen, and I'm here with Ian Smith.
Hello,
Ian. And Ian, we've got a great episode today, don't we? Because I see Nancy Pelosi on the screen, and well. What a week she's had.
One of her best weeks from our perspective. Probably her worst week. Probably, I don't think she'll ever live this down. Actually, this is probably the single biggest gaffe, the lowest point in her entire career, and it's a long career as well, spanning multiple decades. So, for those that have been living under a rock for the past couple of days,
a long career of gaffes.
Yeah, Pelosi,
or even those people who are just following the lockdown rules. Perhaps they're in a state where they're not allowed to go outside. Perhaps their electricity is being cut off to their homes for disobeying mask wearing rules. But whilst you have all been wearing your masks, whilst you have all been suffering with corona haircuts, Pampered Nancy hasn't.
Oh, no. She has taken a visit to a local neighbourhood salon, I should say, and had a bit of the old pampering treatment. And you can see here as well, no mask.
You could see the staff around her are all wearing masks.
Yes. And she does appear to have something kind of, around her neck, but it's most certainly not covering her mouth. So I don't really see the purpose of it being there, really, unless it's around the mouth.
Greatest scientific news on Political. If you wear something around your neck, it does not protect your mouth from the deadly corona particles, and nor does it protect other people.
And Pelosi should know this, because she's a big follower and promoter of the science. And I don't know, maybe she just misread the science. Maybe she wasn't aware.
Yeah, maybe. It is possible that one of the nation's senior lawmakers didn't quite understand what had been going on with the only issue of the year, and nor did she understand the rules of the province she lived in, with the rules in effect for several months. It's possible she didn't know. If she didn't know, that's a sign of incompetence, and she should still resign.
Yeah, exactly. And this is in her local constituency as well. This isn't. It's not like she's in another state. Not like she's in Washington or something like that. This is her own constituency. These are the people that voted her in. These are the rules that all of the people that voted her in abide by. So if there is anywhere where she should know the rules, it is this one particular place, because obviously the rules vary from state to state, from county to county. So really any excuse that you could possibly think of, I don't think there is one for this.
How would you feel if you were a resident in San Francisco? You've been following the rules dutifully. You're terrified of this deadly virus. Perhaps you have friends and family. I certainly know people who were unable to attend funerals because of corona.
Yeah.
Were unable to attend weddings. How would you feel when you see this today and you realise it's one rule for you and it's a completely another rule for the liberal elite?
I think you would probably start to think about all of those things that you've been hearing from people like Donald Trump, saying that these people are champagne socialists who, from their ivory tower, want to tell you how you should live your life and tell you what's best for you. You should do what they say. But obviously, in this case, not as they do. And it's not the first example. We've seen this a bunch of different times with a whole host of left-leaning politicians. They have one rule for the masses, another rule for themselves. I mean, we already saw pretty much at the beginning of the lockdown where you had a lot of people losing their jobs, really struggling, and she's recording a video from inside her giant mansion home, I assume it is, opening up one of her many fridges, I'm sure, with her special ice cream freezer section containing, $15 a pint ice creams, designer ice creams, premium ice creams, an entire freezer full of it, and somehow apparently thinks that's appropriate. It just shows how out of touch they actually are with the average person.
This is the woman who's going to go into black neighborhoods in the next 60 days, into the most underprivileged neighborhoods, into the working class areas, perhaps in the Rust Belt, and she's going to ask them, she's going to tell them Donald Trump is more out of touch with them and their needs than she is. What nonsense. And perhaps for our American viewers, you might not be aware of what kind of happens in Europe, but in Europe, we see several high-profile politicians who resign for exactly this. So the EU Trade Commissioner, Phil Hogan, who is Irish, was recently forced to resign last week. For British viewers, when Dominic Cummings broke quarantine rules, there was an entire press campaign for weeks. He had to take a press conference, and this is just a normal guy, he's not a politician, in front of hundreds of thousands of viewers. Yeah. He's a top aide, but he's still not a public figure by any means. And he was given a grilling by the national media. Pelosi had.
I think the thing is as well, I'm sure, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I do recall on a number of occasions people calling out their political opponents to resign. Certainly people within Republican council members or whatever, for doing similar stuff like this. And there already have been multiple resignations in the US because of the exact same situation, people breaking the lockdown rules. So if you've been calling for that, then you are a hypocrite if you don't call for it now. I mean, having said that, I might surprise you and say I don't actually think that she should resign over this. Okay. But the reason why I didn't think Dominic Cummings should have resigned, for instance, in the UK when he broke the lockdown rules. I think people make mistakes. I think the lockdown is quite draconian to begin with. And of course, if you keep people, tell them they have to sit inside their home for, 23 hours a day or whatever, people are going to get sick of it and they want to, they are going to break the rules. I'm sure most people have at some point in time done something like that. So
I agree with you to an extent. That extent stops when you realise this is the woman who criticised Donald Trump for not wearing a mask over and over and over again throughout the pandemic. It was one of her main attack points. And I mean, shall we have a look at her response now?
Yeah,
because this is the real. This really takes the biscuit.
It's incredibly laughable. Let's take a listen.
Say this: I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that when they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And I think that that this salon owes me an apology for setting up. Now,
so it was a setup, is her excuse. And
wow.
I just think it again, we were talking about this when we were talking about switching the narrative with the whole rioting. It shows a complete contempt for the voters, for her base, for the people that have put her there, for the people that vote Democrats, for the House that she controls, for all of those Democrats that have been voted in.
Shocking. I don't think I've ever seen a worse response to an event by a politician. To come out and to blame a small business owner for your own mistake, to try and throw these poor people struggling to survive, uncertain about employment, uncertain about the future, trying to throw them under the bus. It's despicable.
It's, all she had to do was come out and say, I made a mistake. I thought it was okay. I got the dates wrong. I didn't realize that, I thought this was allowed, but I didn't think it was. As it stands, I believe that they were allowed to give haircuts outside, but not inside.
Or even, it's very plausible that you wear the mask up until you get into the salon. You take it off whilst you're having the treatment, and then you put it back on. Most people would have understood that.
Yeah, I think she did mention that later on as well, actually, in the response. But the fact that she leads with, it was a setup, and it's just straight on the back foot, incredibly defensive. I think that the right response would have just to come out and have been, just very humble about it.
Mea culpa.
Yeah, just been very humble about it and said, I made a mistake and I really apologize, and I hope people can forgive me for the mistake that I made. But it's just, I think, really epitomizes the impression that I'd built up of Nancy Pelosi and the type of person that she was. That I'm not really entirely shocked by this response, because I don't think that this woman would ever admit to ever doing anything wrong. And it all comes down to this, holier than thou attitude that they have. Oh, we're just so moralistically, virtuously, righteous, and we just do everything right, and we just know the right way of doing things, and we're just so compassionate. And as soon as you admit to making a mistake, then that whole facade, that whole narrative is destroyed.
Collapses.
Yeah.
And this is the woman, we made a video last week discussing her views on the debates, and she said basically that Donald Trump does not have the moral capacity to be debated. He's not worthy of being debated. Well, if you look across America and you hold up the two examples of Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi to them now, I think most Americans will strongly disagree.
Oh, certainly. Like I said, I don't think she'll be able to live this one down. I wouldn't be surprised if this might be her last term. I don't know. I mean, she is getting old, but I think it's probably about time. If Trump wins, if Trump does win, and even if, say, they lose the House, right? Surely, if the Democrats want to establish a future where they can actually start gaining control of all of these, different areas of government, to ever have all three of them at the same time, to actually be that electable, I think they really need to start creating an image of fresher, more relatable figures that people can look at and say, oh yeah, that's a person that I really do want in charge. Because right now they've got Joe Biden
so right.
and Nancy Pelosi. These are the two people. These are the two figureheads of the Democratic Party right now. And it's actually quite laughable that they just come across as two dinosaurs that have long outstayed their welcome. And if they get demolished in these elections, which I hope they will, I really hope we see a rejuvenated Democratic Party that actually allows their registered voters to select a candidate that they want to represent them. And hopefully we'll see some actual democracy again on both sides.
In some ways, the worst thing that could happen to the Democratic Party in this election is winning, because if you shore up the ancient, out of touch, white, liberal, holier than thou elite, if you secure their position and if you legitimize them And let's face it, nobody's voting for these people. They're voting against Donald Trump. Nobody cares about Joe Biden. Nobody cares about Nancy Pelosi. No one believes in them.
Yeah.
Paper over the cracks, and we could see decades of Republican dominance if the Democrats win this election, or if they lose the election and fail to go through the proper introspection.
Yeah, certainly. This really is a make or break. Well, listen, we said it before. This is the biggest decision of a generation. I really, really do truly believe that, because what happens in this election will, I think, be looked back as a pivotal point, say 20 or 30
Absolutely.
years from now, in the path that the US goes along now, and its position as a global power and the influence that it exerts on the rest of the world. And I think certainly Donald Trump is the best person for them right now. And hopefully, like you say, it will lead to the Democrat Party shaking itself up, and people start voting on both sides because they believe in their candidate.
Absolutely.
But we can only dream.
Can only dream. And when I place myself in the position of a small business owner in America, and we've seen months and months and months of Democrat-backed riots, violence, looting, when we see the Democrats calling for the closure of your small business that's perhaps struggling to survive, and you see the Democrats ignoring those rules and breaking the lockdown for their own benefit, for their own haircut. And then the most senior Democrat in the country blames a small business owner for setting her up as if she was involved in a great conspiracy theory to attack one of her, I assume, biggest customers. I would be fleeing the country. It's crazy what they're doing to small business owners. Shall we look at the response? Or
Yeah, so like you say, put yourself in perspective. You're the Salon owner. You've just been hauled out nationwide as putting together this great conspiracy to entrap the leader of the House, the Speaker of the House, third in line to the presidency. You've just trapped them in this great big plot to try and make them look bad.
Quite a day's work for the manager of a salon, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you're receiving death threats now at that point as well, from unhinged liberals,
tolerant and inclusive,
yes,
who are on the side of the people, by the way.
Exactly, the morally virtuous people. How would you respond? Well, you go on Tucker Carlson tonight, obviously, because it is the last bastion of free speech. There's no cancel. You cannot, if you want to not be cancelled, or if you have been cancelled, then you need a platform. You get in contact with Tucker Carlson because he doesn't care, and the producers of his show don't care, and Fox News don't care. They will bring anyone on the show if they believe that someone's voice needs to be heard. You wouldn't have seen.
Which is great journalism. It's great journalism,
exactly,
and it's one of the last bastions of good journalism.
So her assistant had made an appointment. Well, this is her response. So I said her assistant had made the appointment. So the appointment was already booked. So there was no way I could have set that up. And I had a camera system in there for 5 years. I didn't mean to go in there I didn't go in there and turn cameras on as soon as she walked in to set her up.
The salon was closed, right?
Yeah, the salon was closed. And this was on, I think it happened on the 31st, the actual incident itself. And from September 1st, the salons were allowed to start giving treatment or haircuts or whatever to people outside. So they would have been kind of gearing up, I imagine, to start operations again, but outside. But I think at this point they've been closed down for months and months and months. So yeah, obviously it was clearly a security camera. It was clearly just a CCTV camera. It's not like someone's put, like a spy camera or something in the corner of a room and gone, oh yeah, we've got it. She said it's not even political. It's the fact that she actually came in, didn't have a mask on. I thought about my staff and people not being able to work and make money and provide for their families. If she's in there comfortably without a mask and feeling safe, then why are we shut down? Why am I not able to have clients come in? We're pretty much done. We've lost at least 60% of our clients. I've lost a majority of my staff. The hard part of all of this is I've been in that community for 12 years, and since this happened, I've received nothing but hate text messages, death threats. They're going to burn my hair salon down, and my Yelp page is just unbelievable with bad reviews. It's just sad that my community is pulling this.
And it's not as even as if this is cancel culture, because there's no one to be cancelled. This is a poor, struggling business owner who has been thrown under the bus by one of the most senior lawmakers in the country. She's not political at all. She has no interest in politics. She has no opinions that have been expressed. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She happened to get in the way of the radical left's agenda. And they're targeting for her. They're harassing her. They won't rest until she's driven out with a pitchfork. And I admire this woman's bravery to go public, to go on Tucker Carlson, to tell her story, because I would be scared for my life.
Oh, certainly. It shows great courage to come on and do this. But I just think this is indicative of that mob culture, right? That this woman has been a part of this community, and there's been this small business only within this community for 12 years. She said she's been doing this. And I'm sure she's met, spoken with, provide services for, a lot of these people that are now doing this, and just how quickly they will turn on someone. And this is exactly the kind of mob culture now that is rife in US, not just in US politics, really, just in left politics. Yeah.
All Western politics, we have the same. And we have to stand up against it, and we have to speak out, because otherwise, this is what happens. You're in the wrong place in the wrong time. A politician decides you have to bite the bullet for the greater good, and boom, your life is turned upside down.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think that pretty much covers everything here on this one now.
That's pretty much everything, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate your support, and please do subscribe to us. It's really important that you subscribe. It allows us to get our message out to more people just like you who don't like Nancy Pelosi.